I never saw it coming. That moment when my sister would lean over the dinner table and whisper, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're still broke, right?" It was a gentle jab, or maybe a dull dagger. I couldn't tell which. I stared down at my plate, the pasta smothered in Alfredo sauce, and forced a laugh. "Yeah, something like that." They all smiled. My parents clinked their glasses. My sister ran her fingers through her perfect bob cut. I felt heat rise in my chest, because every ounce of that meal, every dish, every imported olive, every pour of wine had been covered by me. And not just me, but my investments. The stocks I'd bought while working 60-hour weeks. The apps I learned to trade on after midnight. The nerve I had to bet on one small biotech company when no one else had heard of it. But at that table, I was the joke, the cautionary tale, the punchline. It started years ago when I moved back home after getting laid off from a corporate marketing job. The golden parachute barely covered a few months of rent. I still had debt, no idea what came next. So I did what felt reckless, but also inevitable. I took that severance, mixed it with my credit card cushion, and set up a brokerage account. Started small, $500 here, $1,000 there. Learned about biotech, renewable energy, AI startups, hit a few wins, took profits, reinvested. Late nights became my classroom, but I didn't tell anyone, because every time I tried to explain the ups and downs, they nodded politely, but their eyes never changed. They saw a kid playing with numbers, not building something real. That night of the broke dinner, I walked home afterward, cold December air, my breath steaming in a place that still felt less like home and more like a waiting room for failure. I wanted to scream, to say, "Do you know what I'm doing while you sit in your fancy living room?" But I didn't. Instead, I went up to my childhood bedroom, opened my laptop, pulled up the portfolio. The green on the screen was hard to believe. Year to date, up 87%. My most recent biotech pick? Tripled. My renewable energy company? IPO scheduled next month. Next month. I sank into my desk chair and let the reality hit me. They mocked a portfolio that would retire them. If they only had the guts to listen. That night, I made a decision. I kept working, reinvested profits into other startups, diversified into dividend stocks, but I also started documenting. Every single win, every chart, every milestone. I created a presentation deck, a way to show, graphically, undeniably, what I'd built, and I sent it to my mother, with a simple note, for when you're curious. Her reply came 2 hours later. "Talk soon," which meant, "Are you insane?" Fast forward 2 weeks. Family brunch at my sister's place. "More numbers?" I nodded. "Yeah, numbers." And I said, "Let me show you what broke looks like now." My mother and sister followed me into the living room. My dad joined, glass in hand. My sister asked, "So, why should we care?" I took a deep breath. Then I laid out the charts. Year-to-date growth, biotech 3x return, renewable energy's upcoming IPO, diversified income streams, cash ready to invest again. I spoke slowly, calmly, no ego, no showmanship, just facts, just proof. I watched their faces, confusion, shock, then that moment, the flicker, recognition, but not acceptance yet. My sister raised an eyebrow. "But you don't work a 9 to 5. I nodded. "Because I don't need to. I built a portfolio that does." My mother asked, "Is this from inheritance?" Eyes glancing at the rent signs on the wall. "No," I said quietly. "This is from my own money, my time, the nights I spent learning, believing, risking." My sister leaned forward. "How much is it worth?" "Enough to buy this house," I said, gesturing around. They stared. The old table felt smaller now. Dad cleared his throat. "So, you're not broke?" I smiled softly. "No, Dad. I'm richer than I've ever been." Silence again. Then my mother said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked down. Wasn't ready yet. But it hit me. This wasn't just about money. It was about recognition, validation, the echo of every dismissal I'd ever heard. I answered, I didn't want to be dismissed again. The floor shifted. Their eyes changed. They saw me now. The house was quiet after I said it. No, Dad. I'm richer than I've ever been. He nodded slowly, almost like he didn't know what to do with the words. My sister stood there with her arms folded, expression unreadable. My mom sat down at the edge of the couch like her legs had just given out. And me? I was calm, not smug, just resolved. That was the moment I realized I didn't need their approval, but I wanted them to see it, to see me. Not the failure, not the joke at Christmas dinner, not the one they said had so much potential, but just hadn't figured it out yet. I wanted them to see the builder. That night, I went back to my apartment, pulled up my tracker again. Green. So much green. And one notification blinking at the top. Confirmed. IPO lock-in countdown. 17 days. It was real. The company I'd taken a risk on, when everyone said it was too early, too unstable, too speculative, was finally going public. And I wasn't just holding a few shares. I was holding a stake. 6 figures. Locked. Loaded. About to explode. 17 days passed fast. I made one last move. I transferred a portion of the shares into a trust and named it after my grandfather. He was the one who taught me how to be still, how to listen to people longer than I talked. He died before I ever bought my first stock, but he would have been proud. The IPO hit like thunder. Price opened 23% higher than expected, then climbed. And climbed. By noon? Doubled. By close? 2.4x. My phone buzzed nonstop. Brokerage alerts. Congrats texts. Emails from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Maria from my co-working space called, her voice breathless. Did you see? You're on the board. The shareholder list went public. I froze. What? Your name. It's right there. I logged in. There it was. Public filing. My name. 6th largest private shareholder. 6 figures turned to 7. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Not from inheritance. Not from luck. From bets. From nights no one else saw. From holding the line when it felt like the world laughed. Then came the family dinner. The real one. Sunday afternoon. Cousins, uncles, aunts. The full spread. I arrived wearing the same black coat I always did. Nothing flashy. No new car. No Rolex. But something had changed in me. The tension wasn't in my shoulders anymore. It was in theirs. My sister opened the door, smiled like everything was normal, but I saw her glance at my shoes. Her eyes flicked to the car I didn't park in the driveway. She was trying to read clues. My mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. She whispered, "Jessica told me about your name showing up." I nodded. She touched my arm. "You okay?" And I realized she meant, "Are you grounded? Are you still you?" I smiled. "I'm good, Mom." Dinner was loud. They talked about promotions, new kitchens, a cousin moving to Florida. But every so often, someone would look at me, then look away, until Uncle Rob asked, "So, is it true?" I tilted my head. "Is what true?" He grinned. "That you're a millionaire now?" The room fell quiet. Forks paused. Wine stopped mid-pour. I looked around, at the people who never asked about my portfolio, at the cousins who called me a dropout, at the aunt who once said I should just get a real job at Costco. And I said, "It's true." My dad cleared his throat. "How much is it worth?" I looked at him, then smiled. "More than I'll ever spend." There were claps, nervous laughter. Someone whistled, but the silence under it all was thick, because wealth changes nothing, and it changes everything. They weren't angry. They weren't even jealous. They were just unsure, because they couldn't put me in the same box anymore. I didn't belong. She exhaled. "So, what's the plan now? Buy an island?" I laughed. "No, build a fund." She blinked. Like, for trading? I shook my head. For education, mentorship, for people who get written off too early. She nodded slowly, then said, I'm sorry. I turned. For what? For mocking you, for calling you broke. I nodded. It wasn't enough, but it was honest. So I said, thanks. Then, just never do that to anyone else again. She looked away. I won't. That night, I transferred another $50,000 into the fund, named it after the street I grew up on. Then I wrote a letter to a local community center, told them to use it to teach teenagers financial literacy, real-world stuff, stocks, taxes, saving, investing, the stuff I had to learn in silence. The next morning, they called me crying. I didn't answer, just smiled. The Monday after dinner, I got a text from my dad. Lunch? Just you and me. It was rare. He was never the heart-to-heart type. I figured maybe now, after everything, he wanted to ask the questions he hadn't before. We met at a little diner downtown, the same one we used to go to after my soccer games as a kid. He was already at the booth when I arrived, black coffee in hand, sleeves rolled up. You look different, he said. I smiled. You look the same. We ordered eggs, toast, nothing fancy. He tapped the table, staring at the salt shaker like it owed him answers. So, he said, I read your name in the filings. Your mom showed me. I waited. I guess I owe you an apology. I raised an eyebrow. For what? He sighed. For not seeing it. For thinking what you were doing wasn't real. I leaned back. It's okay. No, he said, voice firm. It's not. I taught you to play it safe, to climb ladders, to trust systems, but you built your own. That takes guts. I didn't say anything. Just let him sit in it. Then he looked up and said, I'm proud of you. And this time, I believed it. Not because I needed it, but because it wasn't laced with disbelief. It was clean, clear, true. I went home that night and sat in the dark with my laptop, pulled up the tracker again. The numbers were good, so good. But they didn't shake me like they used to. I scrolled past them and opened the trust document, then opened the scholarship fund's email. They'd already used the first $10,000 to launch a pilot program. Teens were building mock portfolios, practicing real trades. One kid made 14% in 3 weeks. I read every line of the email 3 times, then closed the laptop, stared at the ceiling, and smiled. Because that mattered more than all the zeros. One night, I got an email from a high schooler. She'd seen one of my interviews. She wrote, My parents don't believe in investing, but I do. I started with $100 last month. I listen to your voice when I get scared. It helps me stay in it. I sat with that for a long time and cried. By spring, I moved out of my old apartment. Not into a mansion, but a small house with light that poured through the windows at 7 a.m. My name was on the deed. No cosigner, no debt. I called my mom the day I moved in. She said, So you're really doing it, huh? I laughed. Been doing it. She asked if she could visit. I said, Of course. And when she walked in, the first thing she said wasn't about the kitchen or the floors. She pointed to the framed photo on the wall, my first trade receipt. You really kept that? Yep. It's kind of beautiful. I nodded. Kind of. One weekend, I hosted dinner. Not fancy. Just close friends, some old colleagues, and yes, my family. My dad brought wine. My sister brought dessert. Mid-meal, someone asked what it was like, going from broke to wealthy in front of people who didn't believe in you. I thought about it, then said, It's not about proving them wrong, it's about proving me right. Everyone went quiet. Even my sister smiled. That was the shift. They didn't see me as a fluke anymore. They saw the work, the grit, the foundation beneath the flame. And now? Now I wake up every day and check my portfolio with steady breath. Not because I'm chasing more, but because I know where it came from. Not chance, not magic, but belief, backed by effort, and held through storms. There's an old quote I think about often now. Don't tell people your plans, show them your results. I lived that, but I'd add one more line. Then use your results to lift someone else. Because in the end, money is loud. But purpose? Purpose whispers through generations. To the ones who called me broke, thank you. You gave me something better than your approval. You gave me fuel. And now? Now I light torches with it and pass them on. One kid, one trade, one belief at a time. Subscribe for more dark, faceless storytelling. And tell me, when they doubted you, what did you build in the silence?